大家好，歡迎收睇今晚嘅26分鐘見證實錄。今年家國不論喺內政以及外交嘅層面，都發生唔少大家關心嘅事情。對外方面，聯邦政府最新公布嘅印太戰略，以及加中關係嘅發展，成為咗其中嘅焦點。至於對內方面今年家國國民其中最切身嘅問題，莫過於係要應對通貨膨脹以及生活成本壓力增加等等嘅民生問題啦。進入2022年嘅最後一個月，即將迎接新嘅一年之際，我哋就邀請咗總理杜魯多進行咗年終專訪。總理杜魯多今次喺列治文嘅一間華人餐廳內接受我哋嘅訪問，當中談及到多個國際以及民生話題。總理你好，首先多謝你接受我哋今次嘅專訪，亦都歡迎你嚟到 BC 省嘅列治文。
It's great to be back home in BC. It's always nice to be able to connect with people out here.
咁首先想問你嘅問題相信都係2022年其中一個最切身會影響到家國國民嘅問題啦，就係你同你嘅政府會做啲乜嘢去處理現時嘅高通脹呢？
Inflation right now is a global phenomenon. It's something that's happening all around the world because of the coming out of the pandemic, the disruption to supply chains, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which is impacting energy prices and food prices. This is something everyone is having to deal with. And the fact is Canada is doing better than most countries around the world with it. But that's not a lot of comfort to families here in Canada who are having trouble paying for groceries and paying their bills. That's why we're supporting them directly, whether it's decreasing childcare fees by half, as we have across the country this year, whether it's moving forward on increasing the GST rebate for 6 months for 11 million households that need it, whether it's we're supporting families who can send their kids to the dentist with supports for them. We're giving support to low-income renters. These are the kinds of things that in a targeted way support the families that need it while we get through this difficult time.
加拿大中央銀行多次加息，咁表示希望壓抑通脹，咁但係目前嚟睇未見得到預期嘅效果。咁當中究竟出現咗啲乜嘢問題呢？咁係咪代表住我哋唔能夠再只用加息作為對抗通脹嘅手段？我哋嘅政府需要諗一啲另外嘅解決辦法呢？
Well, first of all, it's really important to understand that what the government of Canada does is on one side, that's where we directly help families. But what the Bank of Canada does with interest rates is all about trying to control inflation. And what we're trying to do is make sure that even as the Bank of Canada raises interest rates to control inflation, we're there to help Canadians that need it. And getting that balance right is really important for us. And that's why we're being so active in reaching out to support families that need it in a targeted way to make sure that we can get through this difficult time. Because like I said, Canada is an extraordinary place where things are going pretty well, where Canadians are there to support each other, even though people are struggling. And we have a bright future ahead of us, but we need to hold on through these difficult times. And that's what Canadians do very well, and that's how we're supporting them.
根據加拿大中央銀行同財政部長方慧蘭就指出啦，家國有可能喺2023年出現經濟衰退。你會點樣應對目前家國嘅經濟狀況啊？
Canada went into the pandemic with one of the best economic positions or fiscal positions of any countries around the world. We came out of it with the strongest economic position of any countries in the world. We are now going into what will be challenging global waters. Whether Canada has a recession or not, we'll see, but it is going to be a challenging coming year. And you hear that from Canadians. You don't need experts to tell us. People know that they're worried about the coming months. So what we're doing is being targeted and responsible in the investments we're making to help people while maintaining the capacity to support even more if we need it. We know that government needs to be there to support people. It's what allowed us to get through this pandemic and not just get through it better in terms of health outcomes, but in terms of economic outcomes. We came back stronger and faster than most other countries because of the support we gave.
有評論認為，我哋嘅政府花費過多，而加拿大中央銀行又繼續印鈔票去支持政府嘅花費，從而就推高咗通貨膨脹，增加咗生活成本。你會點樣回應呢一個講法呢？
There are people out there, including the Conservative leader, who talks about the fact that he thinks Canada is broken. Canada's not broken. Canadians are going through a tough time right now, but we're also showing what we do best, which is to be there for each other and support each other. Now, when we step forward with support so people could send their kids to the dentist, we step forward with supports to lower childcare fees, the Conservatives didn't want us to do that. What did the Conservatives recommend people do to avoid inflation? Invest in cryptocurrencies. If people had listened to Pierre Poilievre when he told everyone to invest in crypto, they would have lost more than half their life savings. That's not a responsible path to do it. We have demonstrated that by being there to support small business, being there to support families go through these difficult times, not only does it help them in that moment, but it makes sure that our economy can come back stronger. And for people who say we're spending too much, we're spending the investments that are needed to support Canadians, but you don't have to take my word for it. You can look at the international bond rating agencies. Canada is the third largest economy in the world with a AAA rating. That is the top financial rating by the organizations and companies that analyze whether or not a country's finances are in good shapes. We're at the very top of that. So when people attack us for supporting Canadians, they're not only demonstrating that they wouldn't support Canadians, they're showing they don't actually know what they're talking about.
你會預測通脹會持續幾耐啊？
We know from talking to Canadians that the coming year is going to be difficult. With inflation continuing, with interest rates staying high, people are going to be feeling the squeeze. And that's why we're there to support people directly, and we're there to make sure that Canadians can continue to be there for each other. But we also know that as challenging as this will be for everyone around the world, it'll be slightly less challenging for Canada. We have the energy resources, we have the food resources, we have a stability and a growing economy because of immigration, because of the diversity of this country that has always been a strength for us. So yes, it's going to be difficult for the coming year. We have to be honest about that. But what Canadians do, what we've always done, and this community is a great example of that, is being there for each other, supporting ourselves through the tough times, rolling up our sleeves and staying positive and getting through it. And that's exactly what we're going to do.
外交部長喬美娜啱啱就公布咗本國嘅印太戰略啊，咁好多人呢視呢一個戰略為一個訊息，就係加拿大想拉遠同中國之間嘅關係。你認為咁樣去理解同解讀呢一個印太戰略係咪正確呢？
No, it's not about ending our relationship with China. China is the second largest economy in the world, and it continues to grow. And there are many ways where we're going to need to work with China in very constructive ways, whether it's on big issues like climate change or whether it's on economic trade and partnerships. But what the Indo-Pacific strategy is also making sure that Canada is engaged with the rest of the region, investing in Vietnam, in Singapore, in Indonesia, in Malaysia, in the Philippines, in Korea, all these other countries that are really important to create opportunities for Canadian businesses. As the Chinese community well knows, there's growth happening across Asia, and Canada needs to be connected with all of that. So it's about creating more opportunities for Canadian businesses, more opportunities for deeper people-to-people ties with that important and growing part of the region.
咁呢一個印太戰略係一個長遠嘅工作啦，唔係話一朝一夕可以達到目標。咁當朝住呢一個方向進行嘅同時啊，中國目前仍然係我哋第二大貿易伙伴。咁我哋嘅政府始終仍然要決定對華方針。咁究竟係減少往來啊，定係繼續合作？喺呢方面究竟你有啲乜嘢打算呢？
Well, our plan is to make sure that we're approaching China in a thoughtful way that stands up for our values and our interests. But engages as is in our interests. So there are areas we're going to need to cooperate and compete with China on economic, on climate change, on a range of things. But there are also areas where we're going to need to directly challenge China, whether it's on human rights, whether it's on freedom of expression, whether it's on the rule of law and protection of our principles around the world, we're going to be very clear and open about where we stand, but we're also going to look to have a constructive relationship, because that's what Chinese Canadians, and that's indeed what all Canadians expect, to be able to be there to benefit from this relationship, while at the same time staying true to the values that make this country strong.
咁你啱啱從亞洲翻嚟啦，你同中國國家主席習近平喺亞洲嘅對話事件啦，成為咗國際報導嘅焦點。咁我想聽聽，其實你自己對事件有啲乜嘢嘅想法啊？
Listen, conversations aren't always going to be easy at that level, but it's really important to have those conversations, even when they're difficult, and to be very clear about where we stand, about what our values are, and look to have a constructive relationship in ways that we can. There are things that we're very much going to always disagree on with the Chinese leadership, but there are other ways where we can work for mutual benefit. And being clear about that and being strong about our values and our position is something that I think all Canadians expect of their Prime Minister.
咁有報道就指啊，加拿大其實一直以嚟咧知道目前嘅法律好難阻止外國政府嘅影響。咁你對呢方面有啲乜嘢評論？點樣去改進啊？
I think the world is changing, and we're seeing more and more interference by various countries, not just China, into Canada. Whether it's in our institutions, whether it's in our democracy, whether it's in our media, there are lots of countries trying to take advantage of the openness that is one of the strengths that Canada has. And we do have to be continuing to step up in our tools. And we put in place tools that ensured the integrity of our elections, for example, for 2019 and 2021 that had never been brought in before. But we're going to continue to make sure we're adapting and adjusting our tools to keep Canadians safe, to keep our country safe. And we have to remember that when we're talking about interference by China, for example, the first people targeted in Canada are usually the Chinese Canadian community. And that's where we need to make sure that we're supporting that community and defending the values that brought you here to Canada and that make you such extraordinary Canadians from being heavily interfered with by China or by other countries. So this is something we take very seriously, that we work together on, and we build new tools for.
咁整體嚟講，你會點樣形容目前加國同中國嘅關係啦？
They went through a very difficult time due to the arbitrary detentions of the Michaels and due to ongoing concerns with human rights violations in Xinjiang and Hong Kong and other places. And we're always going to be very straight about that. But we also know that there are opportunities for economic partnership that continues. There are opportunities for us to collaborate on issues that matter in regards to our oceans, in regards to our climate, that we should look for. But we have to be very, very clear-eyed about it. China has its own interests, and they won't always align with what Canada wants and needs. And our interests won't always align with what China is trying to do. And the more we can be clear and explicit and strong and firm about that, while we look for areas where we can continue to benefit from the very deep people-to-people ties between Canada and China, the amount of family connections, the amount of business connections we have are always going to be there. And we want to make sure that that works well, while at the same time we stay strong in our principles and values.
咁了解過總理杜魯多喺改善經濟同埋最新嘅對華方針之後，休息翻嚟，我哋繼續會有總理杜魯多嘅專訪，聽聽佢喺其他議題上有啲乜嘢年終總結以及未來嘅政策方向。翻嚟節目時間，2022年加國嘅醫療系統面對重重挑戰，房屋短缺問題持續，政府增加碳稅嘅政策備受爭議，勞工短缺問題更加係影響到各行各業。咁喺今次嘅年終專訪之中，總理杜魯多對呢啲議題都作出詳細嘅解說。聯邦政府同移民部就表示啊，咁計劃喺未來嘅3年吸納145萬移民。咁你係咪認為咁樣就真係可以解決本國目前嘅勞動力短缺問題啊？
Oh, absolutely. Canada is one of the few G7 countries in the world that is significantly growing its population over the coming years. And it's because we're open to immigration, because we've seen from so many examples that new Canadians coming to this country build stronger communities, build a stronger economy, create more opportunities for everyone. And that's something that it's not just the government that knows it, Canadians know that too. And that's why even as the rest of the world turns away from immigration, Canada is doing more. And that's a good thing. We have to make sure, however, the people who are coming here have those opportunities to work, to study, to stay here, to build homes and to buy homes. These are the things that we have to get right as we increase immigration, and that's exactly what we're doing. Immigration is a great thing for Canada. We only have to look again at the Chinese Canadian community as an extraordinary example of the richness that has come to Canada because of it, to know that we need more and we have to make sure we're doing it right.
咁與此同時啊，有人就擔心，咁就算我哋能夠達到呢一個人數目標啊，咁真係有咁多移民嚟到家國啦，咁本國嘅房屋啦、醫療啦、社會服務各項嘅配備，又係咪有足夠嘅能力去配合同應付呢？
Well, one of the pressures on our housing market is we're lacking construction workers to build those houses. So bringing in new Canadians who can work in the construction industry, bringing in new Canadians who have qualifications, whether it's medical qualifications or social and community qualifications. These are the kinds of things that will grow our economy, respond to those needs, and create better services for everyone. So being thoughtful and deliberate about our immigration strategy, making sure at the same time that we are bringing in better connections for families. We're increasing the targets on parents and grandparents, for example, on family reunification, because we know that bringing over family members, even though it's not directly going to solve shortages in construction, it goes directly towards the quality of life of people living here and increases the opportunities in our communities to grow.
咁講到醫療問題啦，毫無疑問，本國目前嘅醫療系統咧嚴重負荷啊。簡單嚟講，各省政府就希望聯邦增加醫療撥款啦。咁但係聯邦政府就話，各省唔能夠只係向聯邦政府要錢。咁喺呢一個問題上咧，我哋似乎去到一個掘頭路啊。你會唔會有方法揾到一條出路咧
？We actually haven't said no to more funding. I've said from the beginning we will be there with more funding. But we are saying as we give more funding, we have to see real results for Canadians. We have to see outcomes. Canadians don't want to see the federal government and the provinces arguing over how to fix healthcare. They want to see us working to actually fix healthcare. And that's exactly what we're doing. I was happy to work with the government of British Columbia to move forward on a number of initiatives that will see better outcomes in healthcare. And that's what we want to do right across the country. So we're going to be there with more money. But I think all Canadians expect that more money means more primary care doctors, more nurses, better mental health supports, less wait times, less backlogs in surgeries. Those are the things we need to fix. Just throwing dollars at the problem won't necessarily fix it. We need changes in the system, and that's where the federal government is looking to work constructively with the provinces quickly to make that happen.
咁家國國民目前飽受生活成本上漲嘅壓力啦，咁點解你依然認為現時係時候要增加碳稅呢？你會唔會考慮推遲推行呢一個加碳稅嘅計劃啊？
The way we brought in a price on pollution across the country, actually in places where the federal model applies, it gives back more money to the average family for the cost of the extra cost of the price on pollution. So even, yes, though the price on pollution adds a little bit to the price of gas, a little bit to the price of certain things, we're giving a check overall 4 times a year that more than makes up for that. So families actually, average families, 8 out of 10 families, make more money from us having put a price on pollution than it costs them. That's how we fight climate change at the same time as we support families, because putting a price on pollution encourages our businesses, our factories to do things that'll not just reduce their pollution, but innovate to be more competitive in a low carbon world. So it's all about understanding that this is the direction the world is going in, And this is the encouragement that many businesses need to say, you know what, I am going to invest in the upgraded system. I am going to invest in better insulation or better processes that are going to reduce pollution, because pollution's not free anymore, at the same time as we get more competitive.
國民目前面對另一個危機咧，就係房屋短缺嘅問題啦。尤其是喺加國嘅好多大城市啦，例如好似溫哥華、多倫多咁，好多人咧冇能力買樓，咁房屋嘅租金咧又好貴。同時亦都有人就算已經成為咗業主，但係現時就再冇能力負擔房屋貸款，因為利率不斷上升啊嘛。咁你可以做啲乜嘢去幫助解決呢啲房屋問題啊？
Well, we put forward a plan in our last budget on housing that does three things. First of all, it creates a first-time home buyer's savings account, which is up to $40,000 tax-free in, tax-free out, to help people buy their first home. We're also moving forward to crack down on the unfair practices, on speculation, on house flipping, on foreign owners who don't live here. These are the kinds of things that we need to make sure makes the housing market fairer. But we're also sending about $4 billion to municipalities across the country to be able to invest in increasing density, make housing starts quicker, build twice as many homes over the next 10 years as they have over the past. And that's on top of programs like the Rapid Housing Initiative that has responded very quickly in converting hotels and building modular housing to respond to the housing pressures. So there's lots to do. We've done a lot. We're going to keep doing more because we know that having a home is one of the basic building blocks for success for anyone.
咁嚟到2022年嘅年尾啦，你最大嘅擔憂係乜嘢啦
？Cost of living for families. Families worried about being able to make ends meet, buy Christmas presents for their kids, be able to continue to put good food on the table over the coming year, which is why we're committed to be there to support people. Even if conservatives say we shouldn't be spending on Canadians, we're going to continue to be investing for people.
咁你覺得2022年最失意同最得意嘅事情係乜嘢啊？
I think the high point was probably seeing childcare fees cut in half. So many families saw a huge difference, hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars a month difference because childcare fees have been cut. And what that also means is more women can get back into the workforce, more opportunities for kids to start school in the best possible way. So that's a really big thing that we were able to do, the federal government working with the provinces. Low point, there have been a whole bunch of low points this year. I think the fact that Russia invaded Ukraine and created problems around energy, problems around inflation, problems around food prices for families around the world. It's a terrible thing to see war coming back to our world in that level. And we need to all make sure we're standing strong for our principles and our democracies.
咁嚟到年尾，你有啲乜嘢説話想同加國國民講啊？
It's a message of being proud as Canadians of the country we've built, of how we've built incredibly strong and resilient communities where people are there for each other, where we support each other, where, yes, we're facing challenging times like everyone around the world, but we have the ability and the means to be there for each other, to support through the tough times. But it also is looking towards the future with optimism, what childcare means for our workforce, what our critical minerals strategy and our battery production strategy means for the future of jobs and energy in this country. There are a lot of things to be really optimistic about, but it just requires us to hold on and continue to be there for each other through the tough times that Canadians know are coming and that we will continue to support you through.
我知道雖然而家係早咗少少咁，不過咧農曆新年其實都快到㗎啦。你會有啲乜嘢賀年説話想同大家講啊？
Well, I will certainly say it again once Chinese New Year comes in a few weeks, but it's how important the Chinese Canadian community is to Canada. We have an incredible Chinese Canadian community that has contributed in so many ways, not just to the economic growth of our country, but to the depth and richness of our country in ways of culture, of language, of family, in ways that is yet another example that being a country open to differences, open to others, is the best way to create a strong country for the future. And we wouldn't be able to do that without a strong and vibrant Chinese-Canadian community.
總理再次多謝你接受我哋今次嘅專訪啊！
It's a real pleasure to be here.
祝你聖誕新年快樂！
Thank you very much. Happy New Year and Merry Christmas.
好啦，今集嘅節目時間又差唔多啦。咁如果觀眾有任何意見嘅話，係好歡迎大家以電郵嘅方式同我哋聯絡㗎。咁如果觀眾想重溫翻今集嘅節目，亦都可以上到去我哋嘅網站點擊節目重溫一覽。下星期同樣時間再同大家見面，晚安。